Hello and welcome to this episode of the College Baseball Advisors Podcast. On this podcast, we cover everything really from high school, college, minor league, and professional baseball. Our guests are at all the different levels: high school coaches, college coaches, minor league and pro coaches, as well as players. And this is our now 42nd episode, and very excited for today's episode. My name is Wayne Mazzoni. I'm the host of your podcast. I was a 30-year college baseball coach, and now I'm current college baseball recruiting advisor. For more information about what I do, feel free to visit collegebaseballadvisor.com. I also would like to mention our sponsor. Very excited to have the Mohegan Sun World Baseball Coaches Convention as our title sponsor of our podcast. I've been going to this convention at Mohegan Sun for 20 plus years. This year coming up, January 15th to 17th, 2026 will be their 23rd event. And it gets incredible amount of people that attend: high school coaches, college coaches, youth coaches, travel coaches. And the presentations are just tremendous. You could be hearing from Jim Penders at UConn, Steve Trimper from Stetson, Butch Thompson from Auburn, right through, professional coaches and just coaches at various levels. If you go to their website, baseballcoachesclinic.com, you can see past speakers and the upcoming speakers. And when they have the full lineup of speakers, they'll announce the schedule. But it's just a great event to get the baseball juices flowing at, of course, a really awesome venue. On today's episode, we have Jesse Woods. Jesse is the head baseball coach at Colby College. And we really covered a lot. I kind of handled this in a little bit of a different format from the way I usually do. We kind of started off talking about NESCAC conference. For people that don't know what the NESCAC is, everyone here in the Northeast knows. Other parts of the country, not so sure. Then we got into Colby College, where he's the head coach. We talked about that. We then got into the program and talked about his coaching style and what he looks for in recruiting. And then we sort of backtracked through his coaching career. Prior to Colby, he was at Notre Dame with Mick Aoki. Before that, he was at Boston College, where also he was coaching with Mick Aoki. So we covered really his coaching background. We also talked about his playing career at Wheaton, which, interestingly enough, Eric Podobelski was the head coach there for 29 years. He now has recently joined the staff at Brown. And Frank Holbrook, who's the new head coach at Brown, will be on a future episode. But we really covered a lot that talking about baseball life at the different levels. What's the difference between coaching and playing at a BC and a Notre Dame and a Colby? So I think you'll find this podcast very educational. And without further delay, here is my podcast and my talk with Jesse Woods, head baseball coach at Colby College. All right, Jesse. So first of all, very excited that you're here, and I really appreciate the time, because I know really, obviously, the spring in a college baseball coach's life is incredibly busy, but the summer, this day and age, with everything that's going on recruiting-wise, is insane also. So I'm sure you're juggling a bunch of stuff on the recruiting front, so I appreciate, you coming on. So thank you, number one, for showing up. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, but thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I was kind of telling you off air about my uncle, and my uncle lives in California, so a lot of the times that I'm giving these talks, he doesn't understand some of the schools that I'm talking about, etc. So I want to start off this time a little differently. Can you explain to, let's say, even though probably West Coast people know more about the NESCAC than let's say Midwest or whatever, but could you just give an overview of what the NESCAC conference is from a baseball standpoint?
Yeah, I would say it's extremely competitive. I think that a fun league to compete in and play in. Excellent schools, excellent facilities. I think a conference that has really invested well in athletics as a whole, but able to, I think, in the NESCAC, really give a student experience that is elite on the academic side, elite on the athletic side, and really truly combine both of those student experiences with incredible balance.
And I guess, I don't know if it's an official name or not an official name, but I always think of it as like the Little Ivies. Like, it's basically similar to an Ivy. Is that an official name of the conference or unofficial?
I think it was. People always. I know when I was growing up, they always considered the NESCAC schools the Little Ivies, and then as the NESCAC name has sort of taken on a life of its own, so to speak. I think that, but the similarities are very, very true. I think you're again combining that academic and athletic experience at schools that are considered to be among the very best in the entire world.
All right, and then kind of off of that, for people that have not been, don't know much about, can you give a little overview on Colby College? Not really just the school itself, and then we'll get into the baseball.
Yeah, Colby College, the little hidden gem up on the hill in Waterville, Maine. I was lucky enough. My wife grew up in Waterville, and we went to Wheaton together. And so I got to see Colby years ago when I started dating my wife. But just a really special spot, a really cool town in Waterville and in central Maine. Colby, I think, provides an unmatched student experience between all of our liberal arts programs and the athletic component. And then you factor in, a school that I believe in the last 10 or 12 years has just invested in everything that has the Colby name on it. So whether it's our new athletic facility or our performing arts center, we're building incredible new living spaces throughout campus, investing in all of our academic programs. I joke around and say it's like a school on steroids right now. It just continues to improve and improve, and I think to the benefit of our students, the experience at Colby just keeps on getting better. So I really found a really unique place that I think gives a student experience that's really unmatched.
So, it's funny. I've actually never been to campus, although I've been up, to that part of Maine, which I mean, to me, I could talk Maine forever. I think it's absolute heaven on earth up in Maine for a million reasons. But I have a kid that I know that played football with my son in high school, and then one of the kids that I worked with for recruiting, baseball-wise, played for you. And I just will say this, that those kids had said when they visited a bunch of places, even Division Ones, that Colby basically had better, from an athletic standpoint, probably better facilities than almost every other D3, not to mention many other D1s. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's accurate. Now you're also you're talking to someone that came from the University of Notre Dame to come to Colby, and I would argue that Notre Dame has as good a facilities in the country as anyone. And when I walked on Colby's campus, I was just blown away. And it's everywhere. It's our new athletic center that has it combines all in one. Under one roof, our pool, our weight room, all of our meeting spaces, all of our offices, an indoor track, indoor tennis courts, indoor basketball. Our rink is connected there. So it's just an unbelievable investment in the overall athletic experience. And I think one of the things that I think Colby really started to figure out is that athletic experience extends, specifically for us. I mean, it's baseball players and those that are competing in the NESCAC. But Colby's a school of roughly 2,500 students, and we've got over 700 athletes competing at the Division III level. But we have a recreation program here that extends almost to the entire campus. So when you've got a campus full of athletes, I think that the investment is well used by all of our students at Colby.
So that's an awesome start, obviously on the conference and the college. Obviously, I know the baseball program. You've really done a tremendous job. Obviously, the 2024 season was insane. Can you tell me about, and if this, I could ask it in a different way if the first way doesn't resonate. Do you have a coaching style, a coaching philosophy, a way you run the program? Is there a couple of things that you say, hey, this is just the way I run a program?
Yeah, I think it starts with the type of players that you want to bring in. I mean, we all want to bring in, elite stuff on the mound and power and speed and defensive ability and all of those things. And that goes without saying. But I think the thing that that we've been able to sort of hit on in the recruiting process is the person. And the kids that we end up yielding at Colby, I think, have been ones that share the passion of just trying to be as good of a baseball player as they possibly can be, using the resources that we have, and I think also there's we talk a lot about team accomplishments as well as individual accomplishments, but there's some boxes that were unchecked before I got to Colby. I think competing in the Division III NCAA regional was one that we sort of set out to achieve when I got here, and we talk about those things in the recruiting process. And I think that we lay it all out on the table. We have expectations. We have standards of behavior. We have lofty goals in mind. And I think when you get like-minded people that are all sort of looking to accomplish the same things, I mean, it's sometimes that plan comes together and works.
So I was going to ask you what you kind of said, but I'm going to delve into it further about kind of in terms of the recruiting. Yeah, it's pretty obvious. I think everyone's looking for speed, strength, command of pitches, ability to barrel the ball. Like, I don't think, there's any breakthrough there, if you will, so to speak. But you hit home on something. Two of the last guests I had on this was one, Brian Ham from Yale, who talked about, like, hey, I want to find a kid that doesn't just want to come to Yale because it's a great institution and it's going to set him up. I want a kid who's a ball player. And then Chuck Restano, who I believe you overlapped with at Notre Dame, unless I'm incorrect.
My good
buddy. Did you overlap with Chuck? Yeah, which we'll get to in a minute. And Chuck said the same thing at Navy. He's like, I want to find a guy that obviously loves everything about the Navy, but the kid is here to win baseball games. So, back to you with what you're looking for. What characteristics might it actually be where you go, hey, this is a kid, I've got two kids of equal baseball talent. They both run a 6'8", they're both 6 feet 180, they both do the same things. What would make you say, I want this one kid maybe more than the other kid?
Yeah, so one of the things when I first started, I played at Wheaton and then I started right away. And Coach Podbelski, I think, has made his career on recruiting the Wheaton guy. And I think that that's something that really sort of resonated with me. And when he was taking me out and teaching me how to evaluate players, I think that's one of the things that has always been in the back of my mind is obviously, like, within 10 minutes of watching a kid play, you can evaluate most of his tools, but I think watching him play the game will allow you to really crawl into who that person is. Coach always used to say to me, like, watch him when he makes an error, watch him when he gets a hit, watch him when he does something well, watch him when his team goes up, watch him when his team goes down, watch him when his teammate makes an error. All of the things that happen in a game, if you watch the reaction to that person, I think it'll tell you a lot about the type of player they are, the type of competitor that they are, and then ultimately the type of player that you're recruiting. Or it might tell you otherwise. It may tell you, hey, all the tools are the same as this player, but they don't play the game the same way. They're not into it, for the same reasons, and that may sway your decision one way or another. And I think that's something that has always stuck with me at every place that I've been is, once you get past the easy part of evaluating the physical pieces is, really be able to evaluate the intangible things, which may sound ridiculous, but I think those intangibles will stick out.
No, it's a great point. I mean, I think back to my recruiting days, the same thing. Like, you want to find a kid that, number one, has got the talent. Number two, that actually likes where you're working, your college, right there. They're actually interested in the school. And then I would try to evaluate what you said. Sometimes it's difficult with the amount of kids that you have to see. So I would always try to call like the high school coach, where a guy that was like not being paid, and just say like, hey, is this the kid you want on the mound when the game on the line? Is this the kid you want at bat? Is this a team? And like I would kind of mostly trust the high school coach, because to me that's like really authentic, level of
absolutely
of baseball.
Absolutely. And they don't have the same things. They don't have the same sort of end goal. A lot of them grow up in their communities where the coach has been for a long time, or the coach their high school coach may teach at the school or work in the community somewhere. I think they give you a much more genuine evaluation.
So I wasn't kind of planning on asking this, but I think it would be beneficial to people. Is, many of the coaches I've talked to have said this. We know how the Major League draft works. You draft all these guys, you still really have no idea who's going to actually make it and who's not. We recruit all these guys, you still have no idea who's going to really excel or not. Like when people would say, what do you think of your recruiting class? I'd say, well, I'll tell you after the fall, after I've seen them for 6 weeks and know what they're about. So like, over the years, and obviously we'll get to all the other places you've been, but let's just talk about it, Colby. Is there any like characteristics of the kids that you've gotten there that like 4 years later, this is one of the best players? Is there one or two things that these guys do, your best players do, that make them your best players?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind, Wayne, is handle adversity. I mean, I think regardless of what school you go to, whether you're going to Colby or you're going somewhere else, you're going to be faced with adversity. I mean, you go off to school and you're sleeping in a new bed and you're eating different food, and your days are completely different than how they've been, and you've got to adapt to that. And there's some adversity there. Now higher education's not easy. You're going to be challenged like you've never been challenged before in the classroom, and then you're on a team of all players that are equally as good as you and better, and some of them are 3-4 years older than you, and if
right.
you can, I think the big thing that we try to talk about is our first years need to reflect back to when they were freshmen in high school, and looking up at those seniors who are 4 years older than them. They have more experience, they're stronger, they're bigger, they're older, they're more mature, so I think there's adversity there, and I think the ones that are able to look at the tough times as opportunity for growth, and I know that's cliche, but truly, if you don't let the hard times beat you up, and you look at them as a good part of your improvement, I think your success is that much closer to you.
I love what you said it, because I never actually thought about that. That is an awesome point of like, hey, when you're a freshman in college, it's going to be difficult, man. You're facing some veteran guys, and that's a great example. When you're a freshman in high school, those seniors are just, some kids are advanced enough in certain, maybe they're even in smaller towns where they could compete, with some of the varsity guys, the freshmen. Most can't. And from my perspective as now like a recruiting advisor, I'll get these, it drives me crazy, but people don't know any better. They'll say something like, well, I don't know, if my son goes to Villanova or Georgetown or William & Mary, it might take him until senior year to play. But if he goes to Colby or Amherst or Williams or Middlebury, he'll be able to play as a freshman. I go, you have no idea what you're talking about. Maybe you have a shot, but those schools are ridiculously good. I mean, look at MIT's got a guy drafted in the 7th round on the mound. They just don't get it, and I think it's because they don't see those games in person. They don't really understand what that level is like. So, I mean, I would imagine it's not too often that your freshmen impact the best freshmen on the team, or am I wrong about that?
Our impact freshmen on paper, that when we come in, we think we've got, they take a little more time to develop. Absolutely, that happens. And I also always say, Wayne, is the biggest jump guys end up making is between their freshman and their sophomore year, because now every day is not new. You've experienced the entire year. You've experienced the fall. You've experienced the winter. You've experienced the spring season. You went out in the summertime, hopefully improved, and then you came back your second year. And there's no new days. It's every day you know what to expect. And I think that that's truly where you start to see guys make their biggest jumps.
Yeah, it's a good point. It makes me think back to something Butch Thompson said to me one time, which I love Butch because he's just like he's almost yogi. Like he makes the most simple points, and he goes, "I have to remind myself as a coach that players can get better. Like sometimes you judge this kid in first semester, a freshman year, and then by his sophomore year, he's a totally different player because guys can get better.
Yeah, and nowadays that's still few and far between because we live in the right now society where everything is right now. You want to do something, you want an answer, you want information, it's right now, and unfortunately, like baseball, it's just not played that way.
No, totally. So you alluded to it before, prior to Colby, you're at Notre Dame. So how many years total was your time at Notre Dame?
I was at Notre Dame for 8 seasons, which is like 2 tours in the White House.
So obviously you come in with Mick, which we'll go back to the BC, and I'm again kind of going backwards in your career this time.
Yeah.
Obviously I talked with Chuck was on a couple episodes ago, and I mean he's just an awesome guy who played and then started coaching at Sacred Heart, where he basically left coaching at Sacred Heart to go to Monmouth the year that I started the next year at Sacred Heart. So just talk about the time at Notre Dame. What's it like to coach at that unbelievable institution? And then and if you also maybe add in, it can't be also easy. There's got to be some challenges of playing there. And the previous guy I knew, I'm very close with Paul Maneri, who coached at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And obviously he did really well there, but at the same time, it's not. You don't have the weather in your factors. So talk about your time there from what you take away from it, and what maybe people don't realize it's like coaching at Notre Dame.
Yeah, it is. It's every day there's something going on there, and it's really like working in the White House. There's action all the time, and it was an unbelievable experience for me to be able to coach the guys that I got to there, the teams I got to be a part of, and just being a part of the school was incredible. To be able to work with Mick and Chuck. And some others along the way. I mean, we've got some other coaches that are out there coaching that I had the chance to coach with there. One, Eddie Smith, the head coach at Washington. So we not only do we have great players, we have great coaches there too, and we had so much fun coaching those guys. And coaching in that league. And obviously, I had some experience in the ACC coming from BC to Notre Dame. But you're right. There's challenges too, and there's academic challenges. There's academic standards at Notre Dame that are different from other places. There's the weather certainly, the location too. It's a challenging place as far as when you're building out days for athletes. And our traveling party was too large to sort of fly out of South Bend. We had to drive to Chicago, which is 2 hours away and in a different time zone. And then you factor that in on the way to where you're traveling to and coming back. There's some things that you got to work around, and you have to focus on them so that you can create a good environment for the players to perform in. But you can't let those challenges are also what makes the school so great. So much like the other schools I've been at Wheaton, BC, and Colby, the challenges are also what makes the school as unique and great as it is. So I think if you embrace those things, and I think that's what we tried to do, and it was such a great time, my 8 years at Notre Dame.
It's funny. I mean, I've been to probably the 3 cool, and I've been to a lot of cool places that I'm sure you have. There's some really neat universities and really ridiculous baseball facilities like Mississippi State and Clemson and the LSU. But the 3 places that stand out in my mind is Stanford in California, Notre Dame in the Midwest, and Army, West Point,
Yeah.
in terms of like excellence, everything is done excellent. Like, I mean, the facilities, the school itself, the grounds, everything they do just excellently. And it must be pretty neat to be at a university where like things are not done half-assed. They're done. If they're going to do them, they're going to do them right. I'm sure that was neat to be a part of that kind of university.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that that's one of the things that when I walk at Colby, like I say the same things. I'm like, that there's every part of campus. There's no part of campus you don't show to a recruit. In
Right.
a lot of places, you're like, well, don't take them down that way over there because that's old. And,
I've been there.
we haven't updated
Yeah.
that since the '60s.
Right.
There's no place that you don't show off, and there's no place that you're sort of like afraid of them seeing. It's the same thing at Colby.
So again, going back now, you spent, I believe it was 3 seasons at BC with Mick as well. BC obviously since then has gone through Gambino. Now it's Interdonato. They have a new facility, outdoors and indoors. Unbelievable. Back, we could lump it in with those other three we talked about, and in terms of excellence, the place is just absolutely fantastic. Again, back to that experience. Now, this many years later, what do you remember back to your time at BC
Yeah,
working there?
I remember the people. I remember the challenges too. Like, we're in the ACC. We're on Eddie Pellegrini Field. To us was awesome, and it was something we were, we were proud of. To almost like, hey, we don't have what you have, but like, come
Right.
over here and play us, and we'll show you we don't need it. And I
Right.
think we embraced that there. We had, much like Notre Dame, we had guys that were, getting drafted and moving on and playing in the big leagues, and just unbelievable players. But I think the thing that I remember is like these guys just embraced what we had and who we were, and we like that field. Football practiced on that field, in the outfield, and there were days we couldn't get on the field to practice because they were using the field. Sunday mornings after they had parked the cars on there for football tailgates, we're walking the outfield, making sure there's no chicken wings or bottle caps left down so someone doesn't step on one or dive on
Yep.
one. And again, like those challenges made us who we were, I truly believe it made us better. But just like we just had unbelievable kids there too. They were so committed to our program, so committed to improvement, so committed to just competing like crazy. Those were fun years, and I was young. I was like 25, 26 years old, and I didn't have the perspective that I had now, but I do know that I was so proud of what we accomplished, but I just loved coaching those guys. They were so much fun to be around every day, whether it was outside in the cage at 30 degrees,
Right.
or inside the bubble. Like they were getting after it, and they were working, and they didn't care what we didn't have. They just cared about what we could accomplish.
No, that's great, and it also sounds like, I mean, at that point, were you married with kids yet or no?
Not yet. No, I was living in South Boston. I was a young cat doing my thing. My Danielle and I were living together there, and I was actually I was there. I was recruiting. I was running the camps. I was coaching. I was teaching in the Boston public schools during the day. So it was I was kind of a Swiss Army knife at that point, and loving every second of it.
Well, that's interesting. So I was going to talk about that because I knew that after college, after Wheaton, which I want to talk about that. Obviously, you started to coach at Wheaton. So when did the teaching come into play? Was it after you graduated you started teaching?
Yeah, so I started with a job out of South Boston delivering fish, so I was up early, 4 a.m. to noontime delivering fish, and then that allowed me in the summertime to get out and recruit and go to tournaments and go to games, Legion games. It was Legion games back then.
Yep.
And so we were able to. I was able to get out and get to all those things, and then and then luckily my mom was a principal, and she had a friend of hers, an old colleague of hers, got a job in Rosendale, which is in the Boston Public Schools, and they needed a gym teacher at a school that had no gym. And so and no equipment, so they thought, who better than to do that than me? And so it got me out of the fish business and into teaching. And quite honestly, I'm so thankful that it did. I took the job to stop delivering fish and doing those hours, but I didn't realize how much it would shape me as a coach, and really like started to develop my coaching voice and being able to connect with like so many different types of learners and so many different types of students. So I ended up doing it for 6 years. I did it while I was at Wheaton. I did it while I was at BC, and I didn't have my first full-time coaching job until I got to Notre Dame. So it allowed me to it allowed me to coach, but it really shaped me as a coach. So I'm thankful I had the chance to do that.
So a few things to talk about there. I'm laughing because my son, who's a sophomore in college, spent the first month as like a temp in the Futures League with New Britain, and then when that ended, he's now living in the Cape at my in-laws' house, and he's working on a lobster boat. So he is literally out of the house at 4:30 in the morning, on the water at 6, working all day. He kind of loves it, but it's obviously like a summer gig. It's not his, his future thing. But those hours, yes, that's crazy. And the other thing is, I love when this comes up on these talks, and it always does when you talk to baseball coaches. There's a time in your life when you're hustling unbelievably. So here it was, at one point you're going 4 to noon doing fish, and then out recruiting, and then you're teaching and then coaching at college. I mean, talk about, you're at BC, obviously Wheaton too, but BC, and you're teaching, and then you're hustling on top. I mean, I think of the guy like Chris Bedeswa at UConn, who's done that forever, where he's a full-time teacher, and then he's coaching at UConn, and he's all over the place. I mean, that's just a lot of grinding, and yeah, you were. It sounds like 6+ years into your coaching career before you got a job where you could only do just that job at Notre Dame, right?
Yeah, and I think I look back on it too. I did 14 years as an assistant coach, and before I was a head coach, and
right.
And I think that that was a choice that I made that I wouldn't change it for the world. I got to coach. I got to learn from Coach Pavelski, who I joke around and say like that guy should be responsible for every new coach and
that's a great point.
Teach them how he does it, because it's just you can't learn from a better teacher and learn a better model than his, and I think that it also, those 14 years as an assistant allowed me to experience so good and bad, throughout those seasons, and I think it just prepared me so much to be able to handle all the things that I have to now as a head coach. And I think that's lost right now. I think everybody graduates and they know everything and they're ready to go and they want to be a head coach, and and I understand that drive, but I think that being prepared, you can't overlook that.
Yeah, I think the path to becoming a college head coach like you are is easy to understand, hard to do. And what it is you shut up, learn, get paid nothing, bust your ass, be there early, coach them up, recruit. Don't try to get a promotion. Don't try to get a new job. Just grind, and eventually you'll win out. It's just that simple. But if you come in going, well, why am I not this yet? Where am I? It's not going to work, man. This is not that kind of profession. But if you're willing to be like you were and learn under these good and be fortunate enough to find good people, because I also know a lot of coaches that learned a lot by going, that head coach, I'm going to do everything opposite of what that dude does. It sounds like you with Eric and with Mick and what an experience to work under these guys. So let's talk about Eric a little bit, because he and I had a conversation about 2 weeks ago, and he sent me a text and he goes, Wayne, it's Eric Podolsky. I could never pronounce his name if you told me 56 times in a row. I have a block with it. But he goes, formerly of Wheaton, now at Brown, and I want to talk. So we had just a great conversation about how long he was at Wheaton, and he just felt like, hey, I'm ready for, at this stage of my career, something new. And obviously he's tight with Frank, and then you have Andrew McKeon, who was at Salve, and boy, that's going to be a really good staff there. But talk a little bit, and you could answer this as a player for him or coaching with him. What did your Wheaton experience and working with him teach you with this many years later?
Yeah, my Wheaton experience is everything I am as a coach. I learned from my experience at Wheaton. So I was there for 7 years essentially, and when I came into Wheaton, Wheaton was like a I say this in my recruiting talks, like a startup baseball program. When I got there, there had been immediate success of the first two teams that they had, and we were able to continue the success that they had and just skyrocket. I played in 3 NCAA regionals in my 4 years as a player, and learned the true meaning of team from coach, and it was we had Kristen Orfeo was one of my teammates while I was there. He played 10 years in the big leagues, Connecticut guy, and we had other guys. We had another kid, Damon Whalen, that was equally offensively as good as Chris was, and it was never about the better players on our team. And when those guys graduated, we had other guys coming in that were good, and coach never made it about those guys. It was always about all of us together, and every decision that we made as a team and that he made as a coach, it was always about the betterment of the team. Even so much as I joke around now and say hey, we didn't have text apps and emails and those types of things. Right. Coach made one phone call. He called the room. He called the room phone that was connected to the wall, and whoever answered it, he's like, hey, we got tar pull 8 a.m. Make sure everybody's there. Everybody was there, and right. and we communicated well. It was just team, you did everything as a team. You made decisions as a team, and that's why we were good. It wasn't because we had these elite guys, in the lineup. Certainly that helped us, but we just played team baseball all the time, and that's something that and then I graduate from Wheaton. I become a coach, and I'm learning how to do the same things and say the same things as Coach Pavelski, and then I'm really truly understanding why. I'm watching him in the office. I'm seeing how he does everything, seeing how he's writing down 5 different practice plans and trying to figure out which one is going to be the absolute best one for Tuesday, right. And changing times around and making adjustments, and really starting to understand why he did the things that he did for us. And then, understanding the recruiting part. And then, we, again, as a coach, 3 years, go to 3 NCAA regionals. We win conference championships. We go to the College World Series, and we lose in the national championship game. But, just an incredible run there of playing on unbelievable teams and accomplishing so much, and seeing an elite program, a top 25 program from a player's perspective, and then elevating that when I had the chance to coach my 3 years after, and got to coach with some really good assistants there too. Zach Brown is the head coach at Franklin, and he coached there a long time, and then Brian Murphy is the head coach at Merrimack. So I've been around some really good ones, and I think I try to take all those experiences with me. But those 7 years at Wheaton for sure shaped me, for the next almost 20 years after now.
And do you recall from high school, the process, recruiting process to get to Wheaton? I asked that of everybody, and obviously things were different back in the time when, you were in high school in terms of a million teams and events and technology and all this stuff. So what do you remember this many years later about the recruiting process for you?
Yeah, I remember. I remember a lot of things. I remember, the letters coming in the mail and opening them up with my mom and my dad. I remember taking visits and how they were different from school to school. I remember sitting with, like now I look back and go like, sitting with Bill Holloway and Ed Flaherty and Eric Podbelski and listening to those guys talk about their programs and then I remember the feeling at each campus when you're walking around. In some of those campuses, I took a lot of visits. I was walking everywhere, and I'm getting a feel for like, is this where I could see myself? And on some of the campuses, quite honestly, I was like, this isn't for me. I don't like the dorms.
Right.
Or I don't like the campus layout, or the facilities aren't kind of what I wanted. And then some other ones being like, wow, this place is really cool. This is this would be awesome. And then certainly like when I went to Wheaton, it just hit on everything that I thought I wanted, and then with Coach Podbelski and Derek Carlson, who's the head coach at Brandeis now, like I got to be coached by those two guys there, and it's just I'm so thankful that I chose Wheaton, because I never would have met my wife, who I have two beautiful children with, and about to celebrate our 13th anniversary here coming up, and then my coaching career was shaped by my time there. So it all worked out the way it was supposed to, I think. But I always reflect back on my time at Wheaton and how it allows me to do some of the things I'm doing today.
And you brought up something that I try to tell everyone. Not everyone does it, but I said, when you're at the beginning of the process of figuring out college, which is an overwhelming thing for most kids going through it, the first time, I said, you got to just get on campus just to see the places. Forget even the baseball piece. Like eventually you'll find out there's a type of school that is right for you in terms of location and size and setting and all that. And sometimes this idea of what you have as a school isn't what it is in reality. When you go there, you go, well, this is not as good as I thought. And conversely, there might be a school you say, I'm not interested in that place. And you go visit and you look around and you go, what are you kidding me? This is incredible. So I always tell kids it's a bad idea to think you know everything before you've seen enough places, because I would imagine to kids who don't know a whole ton about Colby, and most do, but you get them up on campus on a visit and they go, oh my goodness gracious, look at what all this place has to offer. And then they get to meet you, etc. And I've had several kids that have gone there, they're like, oh my God, this place is incredible. So I think, I would imagine when you're recruiting kids, getting them to actually visit you is a huge part of the process. It can only help the case of the recruiting part.
Definitely. And I think like Zoom and social media and obviously like things on the internet and computers, like those all help. But we all look good there, we all look good on social media. We all look good in pictures and things like that. And nothing will ever replace the real thing. And I think the ones that you experience in person and go like, that place had the wow factor for you, I think is critical. And I think while you're there, you get to ask the questions that are important to you. I think that, I love getting different questions when recruits are asking me, or their parents and families are asking me different questions about, what are some of the unique things that we do? Like one of the questions I got long ago was, what's something that you do differently than other programs? And I thought to myself, like, that was such a good question, that I'm going to now make sure that I'm showing recruits the different things that we do. Just pick one or two different things that I know nobody else is doing, because they're only done here. And to me, like I could tell you, like when I first started recruiting, like I know in the back of my mind, I'm thinking to myself, well, I want to say the things that I think, that the player wants to hear or that mom and dad wants to hear, and I want to stay focused on those things. And now that I've been doing it for so long, I think that I want to tell them who we are, what we do. I want to tell them the challenges that we have. I want to tell them and tell them the things that we're going to do differently and why we're unique. And ultimately, if they end up choosing Colby, then they're choosing it for the right reasons because they know exactly what they're getting into, who they're going to be with, what they're going to be doing. And I think that that's part of the reason why we've been able to hit the ground running with the players that end up coming here.
That is actually a really, really, really good point. I think back to my recruiting, I probably did what you said earlier, like just tried to make it like, hey, how can I arrange this talk and this visit so that they're comfortable and I get the kid to like the place. But you're right. Instead of sugarcoating some things, I should say, listen, this is what it's going to be like when you come here. And you're not, I don't want you to complain as a freshman that we don't have an indoor place with a track man or we don't this is the reality of it. So know that coming in, I think that's very smart because obviously you have a lot to offer, but no place is perfect. So they should know ahead of time what they're getting into.
Right, and we got the transfer portal now that none of us, like you as a player, you don't want to be in there. You want to go to a school that you've chosen and go, this is it. I'm here 4 years. This is going to be great. I'm going to get my degree from here. I'm going to play with great players. I'm going to be challenged. I'm going to compete. Like you want all of those things. You don't want to say, well, hey, I'm going to go here and then, if it doesn't work out, then I can just hop in the portal and maybe find the place that I was looking for now. Like you don't want that. You want to make one decision and then look back on it the way that I look back on my time at Wheaton. And go like, man, I'm so glad I didn't choose somewhere else. I'm so glad I didn't play for another coach. I'm so glad I didn't play with other players. I'm so glad that all of those things ended up. And I look back on that and think to myself, that's exactly what I want the guys at Colby to say. When they graduate here, I can't guarantee them they're going to be All-Americans. I can't guarantee we're going to win a national championship. I can guarantee we're going to work like hell to make those things happen or give us the best chance of those things happening. But ultimately, I want them to look back and go like, I played in a great program. I played with great players. Those guys are they're in my wedding now. We're living together after college. We're still hanging out. Our families are getting together. And I want them to come back. Like when they're living in the Boston area and we go play at Tufts. Like I think we might have outnumbered the Tufts crowd when we were there last time. So. Those are the things that I want our guys to be able to say after they graduate. And I know I say those same things about Wheaton.
And I totally agree. And it's interesting. What you just said is absolutely perfectly said. I say it all the time. Like, if you're going into a place with a foot out the door, forget it. Like, that's not. It might seem easy on the outside. I'll just go there, do well, and move on. But you're gonna love where you're at. You're gonna love the school. You're gonna love your teammates. And you should not want to be, with a foot out the door. And you said it earlier. You got to overcome adversity, man. And I think, unfortunately, the portal is a way for kids not to face adversity. Oh, this coach doesn't like me, and this. And instead of sticking it out and grinding, you just find it out. And so, and I agree with you. Listen, all the kids that are in the portal, every one of them has their own story. But to me, it's only about 10% of the kids that are in it for a reason that makes sense. For example, a kid had a medical red shirt year and graduates from a school that does not have grad school and has a year left and now has the opportunity to go to play at Wake for a year. God bless you, dude. No, nothing wrong with that. But some of these kids that have turned 4-year colleges into junior colleges. It's a part, I got out in 2022 and I miss coaching, but what I miss about it is the relationships. And I would think back to some of the players I've had. I was fortunate enough to coach 3 big leaguers that frankly may have left if it was portal time because they would get these offers from other places and I wouldn't have the relationship that I had with them today. So hopefully at Colby, you're insulated from that a bit. I'm assuming it's not a huge revolving door. But I don't envy those places where it is,
No, I don't either. And I think that, I think the player, after experiencing everything, if they could get the money they want and get the education they want and the program they want, and I don't think any of them would want to go through the unknown, recruiting process again. And if you can get those things in the first shot, then I think that's ideal.
All right, so two more things I want to ask you. One is, go back to like the younger version of you, whether it's high school or even below. Like, obviously baseball was a key part. You played in college. You played a bunch of positions in college. Were you a multi-sport kid growing up? Did you play another sport in high school? Did you play another sport with friends? What's your sporting background outside of baseball?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I played every sport you could. Any sport that had a scoreboard, I would play. And then, I think more competitively, I played hockey from 6 years old all the way through high school at Reading High, and then played baseball alongside of it. But any sport that had a scoreboard, I was into, and I think that I would say. Because I played other sports, it made me a better competitor, which made me a better baseball player, which also allowed me to experience failure and adversity in other arenas, allowed me to move on and not make it a big deal, and able to play the next pitch or play the next shift. But hockey was huge. I'm a big hockey guy. My son plays hockey. So we're very much a hockey family. So, but I think that playing all those other sports allowed me to play better in baseball, which then I ended up playing in college.
Yeah, I think about a lot of people I've talked to. Butch Thompson, big football player, high school, played football actually in college. Brian Ham played also baseball and soccer at Middlebury. All these other coaches that talk about how influential, whether it was hockey, obviously you learn a lot of toughness, football, wrestling, so and it does bother me a little bit, I'm not gonna lie, that's almost gone. Like, forget the 3-sport kid, the 2-sport kid is disappearing a lot. And you could be competitive and great even if you just did one sport, but I think playing a multiple sports lends you to developing your athleticism, but just like you said, also your competitiveness. I think it's really important.
Yeah, it makes you a much more well-rounded competitor, I think.
Yeah, no question. All right, the last thing I wanted to ask you is, and I would just generally ask this, but I'm happy this is our second episode. We're sponsored by the Mohegan Sun World Baseball Coaches Convention, which takes place every January. I literally go to it every year for a bunch of things. Just great people. I've done some presentations, but it gets your baseball juices flowing. I network with a bunch of people that I wound up having on this podcast. So I'll just ask you two questions as it relates to that. What do you do in terms of like your professional development? Do you go to conventions? Do you watch videos? Do you go online? Do you talk with other coaches? Like, obviously your years coaching with all those people was a master's degree in coaching, but do you still try to stay on the forefront of certain things too?
Yeah, and I think that I've got a lot of relationships with other guys that I didn't coach with, and I try to pick their brain as often as I can. But to me, like, that convention allows me to sit and listen to some of the best coaches that that their players are performing at a high level, and I'm able to say, I might not be able to say like we can do everything that they're doing, but I'm going to take 4 or 5 tidbits from them and bring them back to Colby with us. We may not have some of the stuff that they have, or we might not be. Our preseason might be more indoors. So how can we take what they're doing and do it here? I like the way that coach says that and teaches that.
Right.
That communication is going to may work better than how I'm doing it. And I think the best coaches are constantly trying to evolve and improve the way that they're connecting with their players, improve the way that they're developing their players, creating a better experience. And I think one of the things that we all, I'm about to go on my 21st or 22nd season coaching in college baseball. I don't want the guys 20 years ago going, he's still talking the same way he was talking. Now there's some things that are constants throughout our whole entire career for sure. But I don't want to be the old, the nutty old professor,
right.
boring these guys. And I want to learn And the only way to do that is to learn from others of how they're doing it, and then take what they're doing and make it your own. I think that's what the best always do.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, interestingly, when I was coaching at Holy Cross before I went to Sacred Heart, Matt Blake was on the pitching staff. Matt Blake is now the New York Yankees pitching coach. Certainly back then, I didn't see that he was going to be the Yankees pitching coach in 20 years. But what Matt does really well is take old school and new school and make them his own and deliver that message to each pitcher in the way that pitcher needs to hear it. And I think that's what makes him. He's not one way or the other. He takes everything available to him and tries to help each pitcher. And it sounds like same thing that you do or all good coaches do. It's like, how do I deliver this to the player to get the player to develop and get the most out of the player?
Absolutely. The best coaches take their experiences, and use them. Wherever they get those experiences, doesn't matter.
So the last final thing then is there anything, and I asked this in a number of ways for you to, whatever resonates with you. What would you tell your younger self? What would you tell a high school sophomore now? Is there any couple of things, you mentioned obviously adversity before, but is there anything that you would impart to somebody younger or even a young coach that you find is a key thing to, if you want to make it as far as you can in this game, what's a key thing you would have them keep in mind as they're developing?
Yeah, play with passion, regardless of what the scoreboard says, what the what your stat line says. Play with passion, but show that you truly love this. Baseball's too hard to get wrapped up in the failure component, to get wrapped up in all the other things that you can't control in the moment. So if you truly love competing and you love playing baseball, just show it every pitch. And I think that our best players do that. So that's what we're looking for. We all know you're going to strike out. We all know you're going to make an error. We all know that the scoreboard at the end of the game is not always going to be in your favor. But if you're playing with passion and from pitch one till the end of the game, those are the types of players that end up performing at a high level, through high school and college and into professional baseball.
I love you say that because I would always preach that in a very different way, and I like your way better. My way was people that are mentally tough compete as close to their potential regardless of circumstances. If it's hot, if it's cold, the mound's good, the mound's bad, the umpire's screwing you or not. Like, it's the first game of the season, it's a scrimmage, it's the World Series. Like, you're going to play as close to as good as you can, no matter all these other crazy factors going on. And you basically said in another way, like, no matter what's going on, play with passion. I like that. That's better said, because you're right. There are times when it's like, it's cold. All right, who cares? Play hard. It's too hot. Who cares? Play hard. This other team is 30-0. Who cares? Play hard. This other team's 0-30. Who cares? Play hard. Like, we get worried. We get distracted by all these things. And you're right. Just if you play with passion and coach with passion, I think you're going to have a great career regardless, right?
That's right.
All right, Jesse, you're the man, dude. I totally appreciate you coming on and joining me, and it's nice to get to know you better, and for the people to get to know you better. It's obvious why Colby is lucky to have you. It's a great place. I mean, anyone that doesn't know much about Colby, if you can play and you love the game, I definitely would put them on your radar. I know you got a camp coming up. At least have a couple in July or something coming up in August, right, Coach?
Yeah, come on up, check us out. You won't be disappointed.
Absolutely. All right, Jesse, you're the man. I'll end it now, so I'm just gonna hit stop. Thank you all for listening to this episode of the College Baseball Advisors Podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Mazzoni. Again, my background is 30 years as a college baseball coach, current college baseball recruiting advisor. For more information about what I do, including a free Zoom where I talk with players and families, no obligation to talk about your personal situation in the recruiting process, please visit collegebaseballadvisor.com. Again, I want to thank our title sponsor, the Mohegan Sun World Baseball Coaches Convention. It takes place every year in January. This year, January 15th to 17th, 2026 at the Great Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. This is an event that is one of the best coaches conventions that is in the Northeast. Many people have attended over the years the ABCA, which is the national convention, which is great, but obviously it's a big travel and it's a lot of people and a little bit overwhelming, where this Mohegan Sun has a much more manageable local flavor, great venues run by Rick Orlick, who's just a tremendous person and runs a great event with great speakers and a wonderful experience for everybody. So again, I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Jesse Woods, head baseball coach at Colby College, and look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Thank you so much.